Hey there, I'm srcmake and welcome to the video on Bloom filters. Bloom filters are a data structure that use hashing, and so they're related to hash maps. And so interviewers really like to ask questions about Bloom filters, which is why you need to know them, which is what this video is about. So in this video, we are going to look at what Bloom filters are. We're going to look at the technical definitions behind how Bloom filters work. The really cool section is going to be how we go through a Bloom filter example. So we've got an example Bloom filter set up, and we're going to go through some example operations. And I've got Microsoft Paint open because we're really going to visualize this and go through it together, and it's going to be really helpful. This is going to be the most important section. And we're going to conclude by looking at how you would use a Bloom filter yourself in real life, because these really aren't used that much, but you kind of need to know what you would do to actually make your own Bloom filter. That's what this last section is for. So this webpage is on my website. You should click the link below this video to get to this webpage and bookmark it. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button for this YouTube channel. Thanks. So what are Bloom filters? So the first thing we want to do is ask this question, or look at what the point of a Bloom filter is. The point of a Bloom filter is to store whether a key was visited before. And so an easy example would be a web crawler. A web crawler goes through a bunch of websites, and we don't want to visit the same website again. So what we want to do is mark whether we saw a website before. And so did we see srcmake.com before? Yes or no? We would use the Bloom filter data structure to determine that, and that would then determine whether we scrape the website or do whatever we need to do. So a Bloom filter stores whether a key was visited before. The way a Bloom filter is actually set up is it's a data structure that uses multiple hash functions on a key to mark values in a Boolean array. And you can kind of visualize that right here. You've got a list of hash functions and just a Boolean array, and that's what's under the hood. So one thing we need to distinguish is that Bloom filters are not about key value pairs like hash maps. A hash map has a key, and that's associated with a value. So apples could have an integer like 5, or dog could be associated with a string like man's best friend. Bloom filters are not about key value pairs. They have a key, and then the only value that you get back is a Boolean that's true or false. And it's mostly about whether you saw something before or not. And that's how you would actually use a Bloom filter. So Bloom filters are good because they use less memory than hash maps. If you're Google and you have to visit a bunch of websites, you're not going to fit all websites in a hash map. But you might be able to hold all of the websites in RAM if you use a Bloom filter. And Bloom filters also still provide fast lookup and insertion times. And we'll go through those operations later. So if that didn't sound that great, if you still don't understand what a Bloom filter is, I promise you in the example section it's going to make a lot of sense. But the reason Bloom filters aren't like super popular and they're not taught in CS classes is because it's possible that they give wrong answers. So it's possible that a Bloom filter says you visited a key before when you really haven't. So you could go through a Bloom filter and it would say you saw srcmake.com before when you really haven't gone to it before. And we'll see that in the example section. That's the only caveat behind why you wouldn't use a Bloom filter. It's a little weird. It's kind of like statistics and mathematics. So how do Bloom filters work? Bloom filters use hash functions. If you don't know, a hash function is just a function that takes some input and it returns the same output every single time for the same input. So in our case for this Bloom filter, we're going to have some input, the key, and it's going to output some index in the array that we're going to use to mark something. So input is the key, output is some index in the array. The two operations that we care about a Bloom filter is inserting a key and querying a key to check if it was seen before. I'm not going to go through the rest of this section. Oh, actually, the insert and query time or decay depends on the hash functions, which is why they have good insertion and lookup times. But the rest of this section is kind of technical. We're going to really understand it by looking at the example section, which is really nice. So let's say that we have a Bloom filter that is the array is initialized to all false. And for this example, just pretend our array can hold negative values. Our array starts at -2. It's just easier for the example, pretend. And let's say that our keys are all strings so that our hash functions are a little bit simplistic. So we've got 3 hash functions in this example. The first hash function takes the input and it gets the length of the string. The second hash function takes the length of the string and multiplies it by 2 and it subtracts 3. And the third hash function gets the count of the letter T in the string. So these are our three hash functions. This is our Bloom filter. The Bloom filter data structure is this array, and it's these three hash functions. That's the data structure. Now we're going to perform some operations on it, which are inserting and querying. And remember, this is all to see whether it's storing whether we visited the key before. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to insert the string data. So let's see. We're going to insert the string data, and let's see. I've got my pencil right here, and let's use the color. Let's use this color blue. So the first hash function, everything we have to do for this insert is we have to go through each one of these hash functions for data, and we have to do each one of the hashes, and then we have to update the appropriate spots in the array. So really quickly, we've got the word data. First hash function, we want to get the length. The length is 4. Second hash function, we put the word data in. The length is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. So the output of that hash function is 5. And K3, the count of T and S, there's 1 T, so that is a 1. So now what we want to do, now that we have these values from the hash functions, is we want to actually update the array to mark these falses as true for these indexes. So K1 produced a 4. We're going to go to index 4. We're going to change this false to true. K2 produced a 5. Our second hash function produced a 5. So index 5 we're changing to true. And K3 produced a 1. So index 1 in the array we are changing to true. So our Bloom filter now stored that we did visit the string data. The next thing we want to do is insert the word dog. So dog, let's do this, and let's paste this in. And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go through each one of the hash functions on our string dog. So the length of dog is 3. Ooh, let's go back to our pencil. Length of dog is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. And these are bad hash functions, by the way. Normally, you'd have a hash function that had a huge array, and there wouldn't be a lot of collisions. In this case, we have a collision. That's just because this is an example. So the count of T in dog is 0. So now we're going to go through our array, update index 3 to be true, update index 3 again to be true. It's already true, so we're not going to do that. And update index 0 to be true. So at this point, our Bloom filter has stored that data and dog were visited before. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually query for the word data. So we're going to query to see, did we see this word before? So in this case, the word is, let's change colors to red. So we're going to do a query this time for the word data. That's our string. And this time, we're going to do the exact same thing. We have to go through each one of the hash functions, and we have to find the index for each one of those. So the length of data is 4. 2 times length minus 3 is the same over here. It's 5. And the count of T is 1. So now what we're going to do now for this query, now that we computed the hash function values, is we are going to look in the array and see if this index is true. So let's change colors to green. Is index 4 true? Index 4 is true. So we're going to check that off. Is index 5 true? Index 5 in the array is true. That's true. Is index 1 true? Index 1 is true. That's true. So our hash function says each one of these hashes passed. And so overall, we're going to say, since all of these hash functions passed and all of these values in the array were true, we did see the word data before. And that's true. So that's how you query. You go through each one of the hashes again, and for each one of the indexes, you see if they were all true. So let's see the example of a false. So let's query the word I. So let's switch back to the color red with our pen. And this time we're going to query I. And let's paste our K1, K2, K3. Can you see? You can see. Great. And we've got our pencil out. So K1, the length of I is 1. K2, 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 3 is minus 1. And the count of T in I is 0. So now we've computed the values for the hash functions, and now we want to see if each one of these are true. So K1 equals 1. Is index 1 true? Index 1 is true. That's true. So that check passes. Is index minus 1 true? Well, index minus 1 right here is false. So this check fails, and so we don't even need to check the rest of the hashes. We know that we did not see this string, this key I before, so we return false. So we did not see I before, and the reason is because when going through all the hashes, we checked and we found a false. So that's basically how that works. So that's querying and that's inserting, but we said that the Bloom filter might yield some false positives. So let's do that one really quickly too. So the last thing we want to do is we want to query the word cat. And so let's change to the color orange, and we'll change this to cat, and you can see great. Let's paste in K1, K2, K3, and you can see that. That's great. Let's switch back to our pencil. And so K1, the length of cat is 3. K2, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. And K3, the count of T in cat is 1. And so let's go through the checks again. We computed the hash values. Is array at index 3 true? It is true. Is array at index 3 true? It is true. And is K3 the 1 true? It is true. And so according to our Bloom filter, all of these indices are true. The hash values each return true. And so we would say that we did see cat before, when it's really not true. We never inserted cat. We only inserted data and dog. But you see, because these hash values produced indexes that got updated that are the same as cat, you see these two threes correspond. Let's switch colors, actually. You see these two threes correspond to these two. And this one over here corresponds to this one. We got a false positive, and our Bloom filter says that we visited cat before when we really didn't. And that's sort of the statistical thing that we're going to see in the final section, where when you tune these Bloom filters, you have to make sure that your hash functions are good, and you have to make sure your array is large enough and you're not really going to have collisions, because if you do have collisions in situations like this, you're going to get false positives. And sometimes that's okay, sometimes it's not. It really depends. Bloom filters are just another tool. So that was the example. Let's go through the conclusion really quickly. Bloom filters are important data structures, and they do get asked about in interviews. I've gotten asked about Bloom filters in an interview, and it's a good thing that I actually knew about it. They're good because they're efficient on space compared to hash maps, but the drawback is that they produce false positives, which isn't good. So it's kind of a statistical thing depending on whether you can use a Bloom filter or not. It depends on your use case. Like the example for web crawlers, if you crawl a website again, it's not really the end of the world, right? I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than, having to store excess memory. It depends on the situation. So we looked at a really basic Bloom filter with the bad hash functions and a really small array, but it was good for the example. But optimizing a real Bloom filter in real life is really specific to your use case. And you really need to get good hash functions. You need to have a good number of k, which is the number of hash functions. In this case, our k was 3. In your case, you might need 1,000,000 hash functions. Not really 1,000,000. Maybe you need like 1,000. It depends. There's a lot of things to tune in this. And the array size is dependent on your memory. And of course, CPU too. We went through a really basic example, but that's it. So just to reiterate, a Bloom filter is a data structure that has a list of hash functions, and you use those hash functions to update an array to mark that you've seen a key before. And that's basically it. So I would recommend bookmarking this page. If you ever are prepping for an interview, you can come back really quickly because this page is really short, just to remind yourself of what a Bloom filter is. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Leave a comment if you want to see other data structures, and like the video, please. Thanks. So I'm srcmake. Thanks for watching. Good luck.